This week's case is about the classified ad killer in Florida. So, let's get started. Hello everyone, my name is Brandy and welcome back to my channel for another true crime case or mystery with one or more of my fabulous felines. I do have one that's right here. She keeps rubbing on my computer, so if the camera shakes, sorry. If you are a returning subscriber, welcome back, my feline friends, and a big shout out to my feline fans for helping support this channel. Sorry if I'm rocking the messy bun today. It is hot here in the last week. We went from like 70-degree weather, which was really nice, up into the 90s like that, and there's a heat index of like 110, and it is just hot. So, and my hair just is like, so I'm rocking the messy bun today. This case was recommended by Pauline Kingsbury, so thank you, Pauline, for your suggestion. And I am all caught up on everybody's suggestions that you've sent me. So if you have any more suggestions, send them my way, guys. We can always do that. But it's okay if you don't have a suggestion because, unfortunately, in this world, there is so much true crime to cover, we will never run out of stories. My videos have been a little bit longer since I've switched to the every 2 weeks for the true crime case or mystery, because it does give me more time to research. And this guy that we're talking about today, he had a lot of childhood tragedy, and it wasn't even like where his parents abused him or anything. He just had all these accidents. So today's case, we're gonna a lot of it is going to be focused on his childhood, but then we'll get into what he did when he was older, of course. So I don't know how long this video will be, but it may be longer, but you guys seem to like that too, so thank you. So let's just jump right in. Robert Bobby Joe Long was born October 14th, 1953 in West Virginia. His parents were named Joe and Louetta, and they did get divorced when Bobby was only 2 years old. Now, Bobby stayed with his mother, and they ended up moving to Florida after the divorce. Now, Bobby's mother worked as like a bartender and a waitress, and she worked multiple jobs. So Bobby was often left in the care of the landlord's family from the place they were renting when he was young. So starting around the age of 4, Bobby started sustaining a lot of head injuries, and they were like from accidents. I tell you, this kid was accident prone. Okay, I don't know how he made it through his childhood, but now, Bobby was born with a specific type of syndrome called the Klinefelter syndrome. Now, Klinefelter syndrome is where males are born with an extra female X chromosome, and so it can start causing some like female traits in the body. Now, most times this syndrome is pretty subtle, and some people don't even know that they suffer from it. In cases like Bobby, it was a little bit more noticeable. The long-term symptoms of this syndrome is that males can become infertile. Sometimes their testicles are very small or they're non-functioning. They'll grow like less body hair than other males. They'll have a weaker muscle mass, and they actually have like poor muscle coordination, and they can actually end up developing breasts as well. Now, we're going to come back to that because that usually doesn't show signs until puberty. So we're going to go back to when Bobby was 4 years old, and his first, well, as far as we know, his first accident, the one he can remember anyway. So Bobby's 4 years old, and he's swimming at the beach. Now, he goes out a little too far, and he gets pulled by a riptide and goes under the water, and he almost drowns until somebody actually goes out and saves him, not his mother. His mother, he would go on to blame his mother, saying that that accident would have never happened if, she was watching him like a mother should instead of trying to pick up guys on the beach. When Bobby was 5 years old, he was swinging on a swing set and he fell off the swing and he fell right on his head. He was knocked unconscious and he sustained injuries to his eyelid because like a stick went through his eyelid. His eye was okay, but so those are the injuries he sustained from that accident. Ever since his parents got divorced, his mom would transport him from Florida back to West Virginia so he could see his dad. So his dad was always in his life. Now, on one particular visit when Bobby was 5 years old, they had been divorced for 3 years now, his parents seemed to find that spark again and they started dating. So he started seeing his dad more because his mom was driving back to West Virginia a lot. When Bobby was 6 years old, he attended first grade, but for various reasons, he wasn't able to pass first grade. So he would have to take it again the next year. Now, that summer, before he, went to take first grade again, he had another accident. He was riding his bike and he actually crashed his bike into a parked car. I'm not laughing because he's crashing. Once I go through all the accidents, you just wonder how this kid's still alive. So he crashed into this parked car and he would sustain a severe concussion and he would actually lose several teeth because he hit face first. He gets over that. When Bobby was 7, his mom would move him back to West Virginia because his parents would end up getting married again. And so he would start first grade back in West Virginia. Now, Bobby would end up passing first grade, so that was good. Now, that spring, after he graduated first grade, Bobby would actually get hit by a car. Ran out in front of the car like kids do, and the bumper of the car hit him right in the face. Now, he was not knocked unconscious and he was hospitalized, but didn't seem to be any lasting injuries with that one. But after that incident in the spring, in that fall, the same year, Bobby was hit by a car again. Bobby would dart out in the street and the car would hit him. This time he actually nearly died. So he ended up hospitalized. They ended up being able to save him. But again, he hit face first and he was left with a deformed jaw now. 7 years old, and he's been in the hospital how many times? So when Bobby was now 8 years old, he was at some park his parents took him to where they had pony rides. So he was riding a pony and I don't know if the pony bucked, but somehow he fell off and he landed on his head. This would leave him dizzy and nauseous for several weeks, so he probably had a concussion from that as well. But again, he seemed to get over it and heal just fine. So now let's cut to 1963. Bobby is now 10 years old. Unfortunately, his parents' second time around with their marriage isn't working and they end up getting a divorce again. So Bobby and his mom would end up moving back to Florida because that's where Bobby's mother's family was. Now, his mother wanted to move like right away, so she really didn't make any plans. So she ended up moving in with like her aunts, and there was a couple aunts that lived together. So she moved into their house with them, and they had kids. So it was a very crowded house. Now, Bobby and his mom were given a room, but there was only one bed in the room. So around this time, at 10 years old, Bobby started sleeping in the same bed with his mother. So Bobby starts fourth grade down in Florida after moving in with his mother's family, and he starts being bullied for his deformed jaw and his teeth. So he's really beginning to not like school because he doesn't like to be bullied. Who does, right? But at home, it's not much better for him. The house is crowded. He doesn't really have any privacy. And he's beginning to really resent his mother for what he calls neglecting him. Not saying that she didn't neglect him, but this is what he says. That his mom, again, worked as a waitress and a bartender, and she would start wearing like very revealing clothing, and sometimes she wouldn't come home at night, and he knew that she was out. She found a guy and was out with him, and he didn't like that. Now, Bobby and his mom would live in this situation for 2 years, and then when Bobby was 12 years old, his mom was able to save up enough money to actually buy a house. So they bought a house in Florida, and they got out of that crowded family house. Now, by this time, Bobby was skipping school a lot because he didn't like the bullying and everything. He would also become very verbally abusive to his mother. He didn't like the way she dressed, and because now they had their own house, she had a lot more privacy. So she started bringing guys home to the house, and Bobby really didn't like that. Bobby and his mother had kind of this dysfunctional relationship. Even though they had this house and he had his own room, when his mother didn't bring a guy home, he would still sleep in her bed at age 12. And so he had this kind of love-hate attachment thing going on with his mother. When Bobby was 13, his mom finally was like, "You've got to sleep in your own bed." And so she would kick him out to his own room. Again, this did not sit well with Bobby, and he just didn't like it and became more and more, verbally abusive to his mother. Now, Bobby would end up meeting a girl named Cynthia in his class in the neighborhood, something like that. And she did become his girlfriend. And the two became very close, and they were very protective of each other as well. Now, Bobby would confide in Cynthia and, say that his mother really embarrassed him when she left the house in this sexy, revealing clothing, and that he felt shame when she would bring these different men home every night, and he just did not like it. He was very jealous of the attention that his mother was giving everyone else and not seemingly giving to him. Now, this is about the age 13 that Bobby would actually take his first life. He ended up shooting the family dog. When his mother discovered what he did, he told his mother that the dog had to go because she loved the dog more than him, because she would feed the dog filet mignon while giving him just a hamburger. So, dog had to go, according to him. Dick. So Bobby's 13 now, like I said, and, he suffers from this Klinefelter syndrome. And most of these, if anything's going to develop, it develops around puberty. And what had happened is Bobby noticed that he started growing breasts. So now he had unusually large breasts for a male. And so now in school, not only is he being bullied and teased for his deformed jaw and teeth, he's being teased now for having breasts. Bobby would end up having breast reduction surgery when he was 13 years old, but he was still self-conscious about the scars that it left. And he would never go swimming without a shirt on. At age 14, he ended up losing his virginity to Cynthia, but Cynthia would state that even once they became intimate, he would never take his shirt off, even in front of her, because he was so self-conscious about his scars. At age 17, Bobby had enough of school, and he just ended up dropping out. Bobby also at this time really started resenting his mother more than ever, and actually started getting violent towards her, where he'd push her, hit her. And his mother decided, okay, you need to now go out on your own and start your life. So at age 19, Bobby actually enrolled in the Army, and he did earn his GED in the Army. Now, when he was 21, Cynthia and him were still together. He proposed, and they ended up getting married at the Air Force Base. So now Cynthia and Bobby are married. They're living together, and it seems like he's actually now getting his life together. It's going in the right direction. Everything's great. Cynthia said that he was a great husband. He would tell her how beautiful she was. He would dote on her. And overall, he would just generally appreciate her. And their marriage was really good. However, that would all change when Bobby would get in yet another accident. So Bobby was riding his motorcycle, and he got hit by a car. He was thrown about 100 feet, where he landed directly on his head again. He also had serious damage to his leg and injuries to his shoulders, and he would end up spending like months in the hospital recovering from this accident. So Cynthia would state that after this accident, Bobby changed. His personality changed. That, instead of complimenting her and telling her how beautiful she was, instead he was calling her fat and ugly and telling her nobody would want her and just generally tearing her down. He would also become, besides the verbal abuse, he would become more physically violent with her, where it would start out where he would push her or he would just kind of hit her. But, it was that escalation of, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. And this all started when he was still in the hospital, so he wasn't even home yet. Cynthia also stated that Bobby's sex drive went through the roof after this accident, and that the doctors actually think that his change in personality and his sex drive was due to this accident and hitting his head, that it completely changed something in his brain. Cynthia said that when she would visit Bobby at the hospital, that he would demand sex from her, sometimes multiple times in one visit. And when she wasn't there, nurses would say that he would just pleasure himself up to 6 times per day. He couldn't get enough. Now, during this time, Bobby was discharged from the Army because of his medical issues. So after he got out of the hospital, him and Cynthia, they moved into a trailer, and Cynthia was pregnant, from all this sex at the hospital. While Cynthia was pregnant, she was not giving in to Bobby's sexual demands, so he wasn't satisfied. So it was around this time that he started looking in the classifieds, the personals, and he was meeting women and started cheating on Cynthia a lot. After Cynthia gave birth to their son, Christian, Bobby's verbal and physical violence had escalated. There was times that Bobby would actually throw Cynthia down, sit on her, and choke her into unconsciousness. But through this, she stayed with Bobby because she knew this accident brought out this stranger, and she was hoping, because Bobby was still under medical care, that they could find what happened to his brain and maybe bring the old Bobby back. So she continued to endure it, and she got pregnant again and gave birth to a daughter. The family would move back and forth between Florida and West Virginia because Bobby was having trouble finding jobs due to his medical issues and only having a GED. But he did find a job as an electrician, so that was kind of his trade for a while. After some time, Bobby's parents saw that he was struggling, so they actually offered to help him and Cynthia and the family buy a house in Hollywood, Florida. So they were able to move into this house, and Bobby, wanting a fresh start, would attend college, and he would get his associate's degree in X-ray as an X-ray technician, and he would land a job at the local hospital in Miami. So things started, seemed to be going good. I mean, Cynthia was still kind of dealing with some domestic stuff going on, but, he had a job. He seemed happier. Now, this is when the first assault allegation would be leveled against Bobby. One of Cynthia's friends stated that Bobby attacked her and sexually assaulted her. Now, Bobby would eventually admit to Cynthia that he didn't sexually assault this woman, but they did have consensual sex, and she was just mad about it or felt guilty or whatever. Now, the case was ultimately dropped due to no evidence, and the police actually thought that this woman was lying. Cynthia thought maybe her friend was lying too, but if you talk to her today, now that she knows everything, she's like, oh yeah, my friend was sexually assaulted. So now it's 1980, and Bobby is 26 years old. Cynthia had enough after a very violent attack that landed her in the hospital that Bobby put her there. When Cynthia got home from being treated at the hospital, it was like late at night, and she actually got a shotgun from the closet, and she stood over Bobby where he was sleeping and aimed it at him. She had the full intention of shooting him, but every time she said she went to pull the trigger, all she could think about was her children. Now, during this time, Bobby did wake up, and when he turned over and saw her standing over him with the gun, he just looked her dead in the eye and said, "You don't have the nerve, bitch." Cynthia said she dropped the gun and she told him, "I do have the nerve, but you're not worth losing my kids over." Cynthia instead went and filed for divorce, and she gained custody of the children. Bobby left voluntarily. He didn't cause any problems, but he did end up losing his job as an x-ray technician, and then he ended up moving in with 2 friends, and one of those friends was named Susan. Now, after living with Susan and this other friend for a couple months, Susan would accuse Bobby of sexually assaulting her. But again, the police stated that the evidence was insufficient, and Bobby was never prosecuted for this. 2 weeks later, Bobby and Susan got into a physical altercation where Susan said Bobby pushed her down the stairs. Bobby was convicted of battery and he was given probation, but he did appeal the case and his sentence, and then he was acquitted of all charges. So again, he allegedly got away with 2 sexual assaults and a battery by this time. Now later, Bobby would say that he would admit that around this time, after he'd moved in with these 2 friends, that he started sexually assaulting prostitutes. He was taking his anger out on them, but he remained adamant he never did anything to Susan, but I don't believe him at this point. Right after, this altercation with Susan, Bobby would get in trouble again. He was actually caught sending obscene material through the mail and calling a 12-year-old girl, trying to entice her like some predator. Now, he would plead no contest to this because they had proof of everything. He would only serve 2 days in jail, and he would then get probation. So again, it was like a slap on the wrist. So after that incident, Bobby decided to get out of town, and he ended up moving from Florida back to West Virginia, and he stayed with his dad for a while. So it's now 1983, and Bobby ended up getting a job at the hospital in West Virginia as an x-ray technician. But shortly after, he was fired because women came forward and started complaining that he would make them undress needlessly to take their x-ray. So after he was fired for this, he moved back to the Tampa Bay, Florida area, and he met a gal named Elise. Now, Elise was very religious, and so, Bobby started attending church with her. Now, Bobby's, sex drive never subsided. Him and Eloise had what was called, what he called regular sex, but he still was not satisfied, so he wanted more on the side and was cheating. Now, this is about the time that he saw a classified ad where this woman was selling her house. And this gave him a new idea. So he made an appointment to, view the house. He would dress up all sophisticated and everything, and then give her a fake name, and then met her at the house. As Bobby, toured the house, he would pull a gun out. He would force the woman into her bedroom where he would sexually assault her. And then he stole from her. He stole most of her jewelry. Now, because he gave a fake name and everything, he was never tracked down, really, until years later when he admitted to this stuff. But this was the beginning of his sexual assault spree using classified ads. And this is how he would be dubbed the classified ad killer, which I don't know where the killer came from at the time. I think it's because of the murders later. But at the time, he was not killing anybody. He was actually just perusing through the classified ads for, what seemingly looked like a woman that was, selling their house, furniture, whatever. He'd come up with a fake name, asked to meet him at their house, where he would then sexually assault them and rob them. And he would go on to do this over a 2-year period. And there was suspected that he did this up to 50 women over this 2-year period. And he would admit to doing this sometimes multiple times per day. So in the morning, he would sexually assault somebody, and then in the afternoon, he would sexually assault somebody else. So then the local papers started, talking about be careful of your classifieds, have somebody with you, don't be alone, So that's where the classified ad killer came in, but at the time he wasn't killing. Now, it wasn't until March 1984 when Bobby would commit his first murder. Bobby had picked up a prostitute named Artis Wick, but he said that she left him unsatisfied and that made him mad. So he strangled her and dumped her body. In April 1984, Bobby jumped into a car of a woman that was driving, and her name was Mary Hicks. Now, he pulled out his gun and told her, to drive to some remote place. Now, Mary would end up purposely crashing her car to get away from him. And then he was caught for that. He would be charged of kind of kidnapping, holding somebody at gunpoint. But he didn't do any jail time for that. He was just giving 3 years probation, and then he was ordered to pay for the car. That's all he got for that. Again, slap on the wrist. Now, through all this, Bobby was still dating Elise, and then he found out that Elise was cheating on him with another man. This put Bobby into a depression, and he claimed there was just no good women left in the world. They're all betrayers. You were assaulting other women and murdering them, but she's the betrayer. Okay, dick. At the time, Bobby had a job as an electrician, but he was soon fired from that job because it was reported that he was rude to women and that he had nude photos in his wallet and would just casually show them to women. So he got fired for that. In May of 1984, Bobby saw 20-year-old Negan Thai Long walking home, and he offered her a ride home. She accepted, and Bobby would drive her to a wooded area. He would sexually assault her and then strangle her. He left her naked body just in the woods. He never really tried to hide the bodies. He would just literally dump them. So most times they were easily found, but some of them, just because the area was remote, they weren't found right away. In May 1984, Michelle Sims' body was discovered. Now, the difference with Michelle is Michelle's throat was slashed, so they didn't really chalk it up to this classified ad killer because that wasn't his MO, that he just strangled people. He never slashed their throat, but we'll come back to that. So now the local news stations are picking up on these assaults, these murders, and everybody's scared. And at one point, Cynthia had called Bobby and was just like, what is going on, in Tampa Bay? I'm afraid for you. And he's like, oh, it's just happening to women. And he goes, that's why I tell you, when you go out and you go out with my daughter, you be careful. And all the time it was him. So in June 1984, Bobby would then offer a ride to a 22-year-old Elizabeth Laudenbach. Now, he would drive her to a wooded area and sexually assault her. But afterwards, he was almost like he was going to let her go. He actually told her to put her clothes back on and get back in the car. When they both got back in the car, Bobby stated that Elizabeth kept crying, like wailing. Gee, why was she crying, Bobby? He told her to stop, but she wouldn't. She probably couldn't. I mean, I wouldn't be able to stop if I was assaulted in that manner. But apparently this completely 100% annoyed him. So he ended up strangling her and throwing her body in the shrubs. He would then take her ATM card and he would withdraw cash from several ATMs around the area. So after he killed Elizabeth, Bobby would then go to Hollywood, Florida to visit his children. He decided that he would stay and start living in Hollywood, and he ended up getting a job at the General Hospital, and he moved into an apartment there. In September of 1984, 21-year-old Vicki Elliott would be reported missing. While searching Vicki's apartment, they police would discover that her disappearance was foul play, but it would be sometime later until her body was found. So 3 months after starting this new job at the general hospital, Bobby would be, you guessed it, fired. Coworkers stated that he constantly talked about sex, was rude to his female supervisors, and he also failed to earn his advanced X-ray certification that was required at the time. So yeah, he was axed from his job once again. So being mad about losing his job, which is his own fault, Bobby goes right out and picks up a prostitute named Chanel Devon Williams. Now, Bobby would beat and assault Chanel, and then he'd end up shooting her in the back of the head, which again was different from his usual MO. In October of 1984, Bobby would assault and murder Kimberly Hops. Kimberly was a 22-year-old prostitute. Now, her body where he dumped her was in a patch of mud, and she was found 3 weeks later. But because she was in that mud, her body was pretty well, preserved. She was kind of mummified in a way. So they got a lot of forensic evidence off of her body. The day before Bobby's birthday in October, he decides to give himself a birthday present. And he picks up a woman named Karen Drinsfriend, who was a known drug addict. She had actually offered Bobby sex for money so she could get drugs. So Bobby drove her to an orange grove where he assaulted her, strangled her, killed her. He then was going to dump her body, but he actually got spooked because he heard some dogs barking. So he actually put the body in the trunk, drove to another orange grove. I guess he was into orange groves that night, and he dumped her body there, and she was found the next day. So a month later, in November of 1984, this is where Bobby messed up. He would end up kidnapping 17-year-old Lisa McVeigh. She was riding her bike home from work. Bobby ambushed her, grabbed her by the hair, and forced her into his car, where he blindfolded her. He decided instead of taking her to the woods, he wanted to take her back to his apartment. So that's why he blindfolded her. On the way to his apartment, he would force her to give him oral sex. Once at the apartment, he would assault her many times, but he would look at her and treat her kind of like a girlfriend. And I mean, besides the sexual assault, he would treat her like a girlfriend. He'd take her in the shower. He'd blow dry her hair. He would make sure she ate, that she had something to drink. He would talk with her, and he would tell her that he wished they would have met under different circumstances. After keeping her captive for 26 hours, Bobby decided that he didn't want to kill Lisa, and he was actually going to let her go. So he blindfolded her and put her back in the car and was going to drop her off at, some random place close to her house. So on the way, driving her wherever, he had stopped at a bank to withdraw some cash. And while he was distracted, Lisa was able to kind of peek up the blindfold and take account into her surroundings, look at his car, all this, get all this information. Bobby dropped her off at some random parking lot. And he told her to tell the police that the person who kidnapped her was a black guy, had long hair, and had a pockmarked face, totally opposite of him, right? So he then gave her a long kiss, a long goodbye kiss, and told her to take care. Ugh. So Lisa then walked home, and she woke her parents, who then immediately took her to the police. So 2 days later, the body of 18-year-old Virginia Johnson was found in a field. She had been cut in half, dismembered, right at the torso, and she had a rope around her neck. Now, authorities would later discover or, figure out that the killer did not dismember her, that she had been just left out in the elements so long that animals had dismembered her, because she was partly bone as well. So a week later, after authorities found Virginia, 21-year-old Kimberly Swan was found by highway construction workers. Now, Kimberly was a known nude dancer at a local exotic bar. Kimberly had accepted a ride from Bobby, and apparently Kimberly was intoxicated when she accepted this ride and had vomited in Bobby's car. So Bobby strangled her immediately, and he said he didn't bother to even assault her because he was disgusted by her vomiting. So again, dick. On November 15th, 1984, Bobby was actually pulled over by police. See, by then, Lisa McVeigh had told the police everything she knew about her abductor, and Bobby's car looked exactly like the car that the abductor had, so he was pulled over. Now, they did photograph Bobby, but then the police released him because they could not find any evidence in the car or anything on him. Now, the next day, they actually showed the pictures of Bobby to Lisa McVeigh, and Lisa's like, yes, that is the man that kidnapped me. So they went right back and arrested Bobby. So while in custody, Bobby stated that he was actually sort of relieved that he got caught. And I mean, you see this with some serial killers, that they're just like, oh, thank God you caught me because I couldn't stop, you know? And after a little bit of pressure, he actually, yes, he admits to kidnapping Lisa, assaulting her. But then he drops a bombshell and says, oh, by the way, I've also killed 8 women. So Bobby is given a psychiatric evaluation, and these things were determined that, 1, he was a sexual sadist. He had a temporal lobe epilepsy that induced like an altered state of consciousness, which would explain why he would treat his girlfriends so great, and then like the prostitutes or people he believed weren't worth treating good, he would murder them or, assault them. He was also diagnosed with inherited bipolar or manic depressive psychosis, and had an organic personality syndrome caused by damaged tissue in the brain. Surprise, surprise, right? Now, another psychiatrist had evaluated him as well, because like both prosecuting and defense will, bring in different psychiatrists to do this. And he determined that he actually suffered from no mental illness or disease other than a severe antisocial personality disorder. And they did say that, yes, he probably had some damaged tissue in the brain from all of his childhood accidents and his motorcycle accident. Now, Bobby would end up pleading guilty to murdering the 8 women, sexual assault, and battery, and he would end up with 26 life sentences without the possibility of parole. So, story over, right? Nope. So, after investigating the body that was found of Virginia Johnson, that was the woman that was found like dismembered, they determined that he was actually responsible for her also. They found evidence. So he then stood trial for Virginia's murder, and the jury took 44 minutes to decide his fate and found him guilty. So then he was sentenced to death by electric chair for Virginia's murder. But not done. In mid-July of 1986, about a year after he's found guilty of all 9 of the murders, Bobby would spontaneously just be talking to his lawyer, and he would end up confessing to a 10th murder. And that would be Michelle Sims. She was the one that had the slashed throat, who, at this point had not been tied to Bobby in any way. But Bobby explained that he solicited Michelle for her services. She was a prostitute. And Bobby drove her to what was known as Lover's Lane at the time, and he would assault her, and then he began strangling her. Well, Michelle was kind of very fit, very athletic, and she started fighting back and was pretty strong. So Bobby, in order to end it quickly, had grabbed his knife and just slashed her throat. So that's why she was a little different. When he was then tried for Michelle's murder, and he was found guilty, and he was given then a second death sentence by electric chair. Now remember, this is the 80s before the electric chair was deemed a cruel and unusual punishment, right? So Bobby would actually remain on death row for close to like almost 35 years because he was going through retrials and appeals, and you know, the death penalty isn't something that's quick anyway. But his day came. The governor of Florida signed Bobby's death warrant. On May 23rd, 2019, Bobby ate his final meal of roast beef, bacon, french fries, and a soda. At 6:43 p.m., he was given a lethal injection in front of the many victims' families in attendance, and he was pronounced dead at 6:55 p.m. He had made no last statement. Now, Lisa McVeigh, who, you know, obviously was grown and had gotten married by that time, gave a statement about Bobby's death. She stated, "Bobby Joe Long, thank you. Thank you for choosing me instead of another 17-year-old little girl. The reason why I say thank you now is because I have forgiven you for what you have done to me. Had I not forgiven you, I might as well be in my own prison without walls. God has shown me the only way to really be free when someone bestows injustice against you is complete forgiveness. My life changed forever and for the better. I chose not to remain a victim. I chose to live." Lisa would go on to say that the peace that came over her now that Bobby was dead was a remarkable feeling as justice had been served. Lisa did go into law enforcement as a profession. Now, Cynthia, Bobby's ex-wife, had stated that Bobby called her directly from jail after he was arrested and admitted to her that at the time he had killed 8 women and sexually assaulted all those others. He also had asked Cynthia to, you know, tell the children I just died in a car accident. You know, they don't need to know. Well, Cynthia was like, "I'm not lying to my children," who were like 9 and 10 at the time. She stated that she didn't put it past him to hurt someone because of what she went through, but she never thought he'd kill someone, let alone 10 women. Cynthia said it was difficult telling her children the truth because in their eyes, Bobby was actually a pretty good father. Bobby's son, Christian, who stated his world was shattered when he found out what his dad had done. And it was a lot to deal with, but he was able to go on and live a normal life. He even regularly visited his father up until he was put to death. And Christian also said that he has been honest to his own children on who their grandfather was. I can't imagine the emotions Christian went through. You know, he saw his father as a normal father that take him fishing, swimming, hunting, you know, dad things. Then he finds out that he was a serial killer. That love for what was seemingly a normal father, I mean, that just does not go away. And I just can't imagine what it was like for him. So I really felt for him. But I would love to hear what you think in the comments down below. If you'd like to become a feline friend, please hit that subscribe button. Give me a like if you like this video. If you'd like to become a feline fan, please hit that join button. And don't forget about the super thanks if you would like to give me a little donation. No obligation, just saying it's there. I like to inform everybody what's there. So I thank you, everyone, and I will see you in the next true crime or mystery video. Thanks, guys, from hot Iowa. I'll see you next time. Bye.